to chapel today. It's a little different. We're doing the leadership recognition for the month. So we'll do that, and then after that we're going to do the students that are running for STUCO officer. They are going to be asked some questions, so you get to know those who are running and learn a little bit about them, and then we'll be voting on that later today and tomorrow with them. But before I get into the leadership thing, as far as recognition, how do we define leadership? Leadership is influence. You say, how do I influence people? Because if you are influencing people, you are leading them at some level. I'm going to tell you about, Helen Keller, who was deaf and blind, and she died in 1968. So June 1st, 1968. This last year in 2021, her institute that she started while she was alive served 300 million people. So although she's dead, she's still influencing people. It's interesting, some of y'all don't know a lot about her, but in 1904 she was the first known graduate from college, first known graduate that was deaf and blind, and she graduated cum laude from college. First time in the history of in the U.S. Two people who influenced her, who paid for her graduation: Mark Twain, fairly known, well-known author, and Alexander Graham Bell, I believe the inventor of the telephone. So they helped influence her. She was nominated for Nobel Peace Prize, awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and won an Academy Award also. She's noted as one of the most influential people in the 20th century, and she was deaf and blind. Listen to this quote by her. She said, "I long to accomplish a great and noble task." She's deaf and blind. Okay? She wanted to accomplish a great and noble task, but it is my chief duty and joy to accomplish humble tasks as though they were great and noble. Okay, now think about that. She wanted to do something great in life, but she understood that it was a privilege to do just the humble, mundane things really, really well. And that's what set her apart. But who influenced Helen Keller? Helen Keller didn't become who she was without a person who influenced her, and her name was Anne Sullivan. Okay, so Anne Sullivan was Helen Keller's teacher. Okay? Anne Sullivan died in 1936, but she continues to live on because of Helen Keller's influence in her institute. So it's interesting, Anne Sullivan, when she was young, her dad abandoned her and her brother, and she got picked up and put in an institute called the Tewksbury Almshouse. And back then it was known for two things. One, it was very overcrowded, and two, there was horrible abuse that took place inside that orphanage. Her brother died within 3 months. Okay? Anne Sullivan survived and eventually went to high school, was the valedictorian of her high school, and she worked in 1886, I think 1887, she became Helen Keller's teacher and had a relationship and worked with her for 49 years. Okay? And so again, a teacher influenced an individual influenced 300 million people last year in her institute, although she's been dead for 53 years. Now, who influenced Anne Sullivan? It's interesting, Anne Sullivan, she was at the Tewksbury Almshouse. She was out of control. They didn't know why she was out of control, and this is horrible that they put her in a cage because they couldn't deal with her. So they locked her in a cage and would just leave her. And there was a handmaid that worked in that orphanage, and the handmaid would come and make food and put the food outside the cage so that Anne would survive. So again, Anne Sullivan wouldn't have lived without the simple handmaid who just took an interest in her and said, "I'm going to feed you." And eventually they found out part of why she was out of control is Anne Sullivan was almost totally blind herself and didn't know how to deal with it as a young kid. So she would just go crazy. But a simple handmaid helped Anne Sullivan. Anne Sullivan went on to help Helen Keller, who again is influencing people today, 53 years after her death. And so I just asked the question, who are you going to influence today? You have that choice. I have that choice also. Am I going to notice somebody? Am I going to notice the Anne Sullivan who people just shoved off to the side and they don't mess with because she's crazy as a little kid? Am I going to take an interest in somebody who needs help? And that's all Anne Sullivan did. She's blind herself basically, and she took an interest in Helen Keller. And Helen Keller was kind of crazy too to an extent because she was trying to figure out how to do life, which is crazy, being deaf and blind. Learning how to do sign language, and they developed the sign language, all of that. So, again, who are you going to influence today? So I'm going to recognize some individuals. They might not intentionally have done it. Some of them did. But they influenced other people. So if these 6 individuals would come down, I will share with you what they did. So Jazzy Howler, I hope I pronounced Howler. Is that right, Jazzy? Is she here? Tracker Brown, John Riley, Daxton Meek, Kate Rumfield, and I believe Porter Brown. Okay, so you guys come down, you 6 if you're here. John's coming, we'll talk about John then. So Jazzy, and again, some of these, I sit there and I read it and I think, okay, it's not to me, it's these things, that's a simple little thing. But to the person that received it, it was not a simple little thing. We don't get to choose our influence. We don't get to choose the impact that I have. So my words, I may say words, I don't get to choose how somebody receives those words. And they may take it very positively, they may take it very negatively. Okay? But Jazzy has, for whatever reason, has chosen, and I'll go ahead and name it, Mrs. Patton. And Mrs. Patton just said, hey, Jazzy does a very simple thing every day before she leaves class. And it is this. She says, thank you, Mrs. Patton. And we live in a culture that is not very grateful. We think we're fairly entitled. And just to say, hey, thank you for what you do, and does that consistently, that shows gratefulness and that she values people, her teacher. So Jazzy, thank you for your influence. You're very welcome. Okay, Tracker Brown. This was observed over in the gym, and there was a school coming in. They didn't know where the locker rooms were, they're looking around like, where do we go? And Tracker takes the initiative to go up and say, hey, can I take you to the visitor locker room? And again, you say, what's the big deal? I see people do that all the time. Well, let me tell you what the big deal is. I did a family conference, I guess it was last week, for a new family coming here. Their daughter is coming. And you know what they mentioned? They mentioned you guys. I don't know who it was because I didn't know names. But they had come to 2 or 3 school events, and they said it's unbelievable. They say your students, they notice people. And they noticed that this family was fairly lost. They're kind of walking in, one's a basketball game. And they said, your students came and said, hey, how can we help you? Who are you looking for? And now that family is coming to CHA because of you guys. Not anything we've done, but because of what you guys have done. So, Tracker, thank you for your influence. John made it. Okay, so John being recognized for a stepping stone. John's done the tech in here for, I don't know, how many years, John? Helped with tech stuff. Okay, so for 3 years. And John's graduating this year. And so John could have the attitude of, you know what, I'm graduating and move on and just take care of himself. But John has foresight, and again, he's thinking about being a stepping stone. How do I help others be more successful? So John, of his own initiative, nobody told him to do it, nobody asked him to do it. John said, hey, I'm going to take the younger students, and I'm going to teach them basically everything that I know. And he's been doing that all year long, just helping students. We have to do that? No.
But he's thinking about the next people coming behind him. And that's what leaders do. They're not consumed with themselves. They're thinking, how do I help the next person? So, John, thank you for being a stepping stone. Okay, Mr. Daxton. So this, a teacher said they, gave out candy in the classroom, and there was, the trash and the wrapping paper and all that stuff. And Daxton, of his own initiative, asked the teacher, said, hey, can I go around and pick up everybody's trash? You say, wow, what's the big deal? But again, it was a big enough deal that this teacher says, hey, I'm going to take time out of my day to write a report out and say, okay, this is what Daxton meant to me. And it took Daxton probably not very long to pick up trash, throw it in there, but to serve the teacher, but then also just to help his classmates. So leadership is not this big, what do we do type thing, I got to be the vice president. It's no, I look around and say, hey, can I help somebody? And when you do that, you're being a leader, because I'm throwing things. So Daxton, thank you for your leadership. Okay, so Miss Kate was recognized for loyalty and for doing her job. So Kate was in the play, right? It just happened. Did you have a big role? No. Small? Okay, she had a pretty small role. I don't even know, what did you do?
I was the troll.
You were the troll. Okay, so if you remember the troll, she was the troll. Okay, so here's a unique thing. She was not required to come to every practice because she had a very small part. Did it take you long to figure out what you're doing? No. And so, not a big deal. But Mrs. Hansel says, hey, Kate came to every practice and not only learned what she was doing, just seeing how she could help. And she said, unbelievable loyalty to the other cast members, but also to the directors. And just saying, you know what? I'm part of this. I'm going to be 100% in, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And so that is influence. So thank you, Kate. Okay. And so Cora, again, with the play. Cora's one of those you didn't see till, did you come out at the end, Cora? At the very end? So you knew she was involved somehow. But Cora basically ran everything behind the stage that took place at the play. And you say, okay, well, we had other kids do that. But then I started getting a list of all the things that she did above and beyond, the spreadsheets that she developed, and the keeping track of stuff, and when everything, and none of that was required at all. She just had to do a little bit, but she went above and beyond. So she took the initiative to that initiative, and she listened. So how did she know to do all those things? Because she listened to Mrs. Hansel and Miss Cochran. And she was listening to what they were saying, what's important, what's not important. And she took the important things and developed this very intricate plan in order to help run the play. And again, it was all backstage. You didn't see her till the very, very end. But for her initiative, her deference, deferring to other people, and wanting other people to be successful, recognizing Cora for her leadership. Okay, you guys can sit down. I'm going to recognize 4 or 5 other people real quick, and I'm going to tie it to there's a need that we have in the cafeteria. And again, you may say it's a small thing, but lately it's developed. There's 3 trash cans or however many trash cans by every exit. One's really, really close, and the others are a little bit farther away. Guess what happens to the one that's the closest? It gets filled up, right? And so lately what's been happening, I don't know how long, it gets filled up and it keeps getting over full, and it just overflows on the ground. And again, it's not earth-shattering, but guess what? There's somebody who has to go in and pick up all that trash that fell on the ground. And the crazy thing is there's 2 trash cans that are half full sitting right beside it. Okay? So I'm asking you to be responsible that if the trash can's full, guess what? Just put it in another trash can, okay? But this happened, I don't know, last week sometime. So you guys, I want these guys just to stand up. So I'm going to read their names. But these 5 individuals, they saw what happened, and they just stayed after. and they picked up all the trash, transferred the trash to another trash can that wasn't full. They just helped. Now, again, they may not like their 5th hour class, I don't know, but so they wanted to stay after. I don't know. I don't know what their purpose was, but they thought of, hey, there's a maintenance person. Somebody's responsible to pick up that trash. And part of being a leader is take ownership of things. Don't say, well, that's their job. No, it's all of our job if I'm going to be a leader. So you can hold your applause at the end, but I think I got these names right. Marshall Brown, Tristan Parrish, Nathaniel Walsh, Dylan French, and Carly Moore. Is that right? So y'all stand up real quick and we'll give you a hand. Hey, thank you for serving. Okay, so thank you for doing that. And as you're leaving the cafeteria, if you see the trash can full, just find a different one. I know it may take 10 seconds and a few feet to move, but do that. We'll try to help you by putting more closer to the door with that. Okay? So remember this. Okay, here's my thought for today. Who are you going to influence? You're going to influence somebody positively or negatively probably today. And so I encourage you just to intentionally think about it and say, okay, notice somebody and intentionally serve them. And when you do that, you are being a leader. Okay, we're going to transition now. We're going to do the STUCO officers, and Truett's going to help do this. The seniors we are anticipating that they are all graduating, right? So you will not be back next year. And so you do not need to vote, and you do not need to. So here's your direction. We'll see how well you listen, okay? You get a longer passing period right now. Don't leave the building. No 7-Eleven trips. No run to the parking lot. You can hang out in the locker room and just relax or take care of other business if you need to, okay? So you guys are dismissed. Everybody else, you guys, Truett, you can come up. So as they're leaving, we're going to transition. Truett's going to do a mini interview, okay, for these 4 officers. But as they're doing this, I need to remind you also, on Thursday and Friday of this week, if you want to run for class officer or for STUCO as a STUCO rep, there's informational meetings. There's one Thursday at lunch, and then Thursday after school, and one Friday morning. So there's 3 informational meetings that you need to go to, because when you go to that, we'll email you the application. Okay, we're not giving you a hard copy. We email that all to you. So you do need to be there, okay? One of those 3. So at lunch on Thursday, we'll announce it again. After school on Thursday, and before school on Friday in room 109. So Dr. DeMoss, Mr. Moore's classroom for that, okay? So I'm going to turn it over to Truett. Before, I really just want to thank Truett. Truett has done an amazing job this year with all the stuff he's done. And if you could, I don't have time to do it, if I could list all the things that he's done that he didn't have to do in order to prepare for the next group that's coming into the office, it's really remarkable. I was telling him before the meeting, I was kidding around with Sammy about something earlier, and anyway, I asked Truett if he had done something which he wasn't supposed to do, and he kind of looked at me like, what was I supposed to do? And but I told him after, I said, it's really been the other way around. He's been telling me what to do with STUCO the last couple of meetings we've had, like, hey, we should think about this and this, because he's taken ownership of it. And he's really just done a remarkable job. So Truett, I want to thank you before you do your, probably your last duty as an officer today, to thank you for all that you've done. Okay? Appreciate you.
All right, so what this is we kind of started this 3 years ago, so this will be the 3rd year that we've done this, and Mr. Spencer started this back whenever he was still here and helping with STUCO, yes? And so what this really is just a time for you to meet people who want to serve you. And so this is really for you. So this is not me just putting people on the spot or anybody up here trying to grill them or whatever. This is an opportunity for you. And so I just want to ask y'all before we get started that these people have worked really hard. I haven't given them any I haven't told them what I'm going to ask them or whatever. So this is really a stressful situation, right? Kind of an interview type, but in front of a huge group of people. And so they're willing to do this. They really want to take this initiative and step up and serve you. So I just want to ask that y'all will have respect to them and pay attention and really try and learn their heart and what they want to help to do for you next year. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to ask Mr. David Eccles, our prospective project director, to the stage. All yours. All right, we're going to have kind of a relaxed atmosphere, so it should be pretty cool. All right, so David is running for projects director. And so what that is it involves a lot of brainstorming and planning. So I just want to ask you, how do you go about coming up with different ideas or brainstorming sessions?
Well, go to those around me and I say, hey, we got to brainstorm. We got to have some sessions. And then I work with those around me, those above me, my fellow STUCO officers, and I figure out what needs to get done and what I need to do to help it.
That's good. It sounds like there's a lot of communication involved. So, communication's really vital to any effective relationship. So how do you instigate that communication, or how do you make sure that you have healthy communication with the whole team or STUCO as a whole?
I tend to communicate a lot with other people, big talker, big socializer. So I'm just going to go out of my way in any situation I have to talk to the people around me and make sure that what needs to be done is getting done and that we're doing it right.
So for those of you who don't know David Eccles, he has a big personality. He's a super fun guy to be around all the time. Can you just kind of describe your personality in a few words so that we can kind of get to know you, and how will that help you as an officer?
I'm a big talker, love being around everyone all the time. My biggest thing is community, being around those around me and being engaged in their lives. I have a lot of pride and stake in the future of our student body, and I want it to go well with my whole heart, and I want to do everything I can to make sure that happens.
Thank you. All right, let's hear it for Mr. Eccles. All right, next we'll be hearing from Miss Libby Pinwell, running for STUCO secretary. How are you?
I'm great.
Good. All right, so I want to ask you, we currently don't have a chaplain or a prospective chaplain as of the moment. That may change, but some of those duties may fall under your belt as a secretary. So can you just tell me a little bit about your spiritual goal for next year, or what you hope to accomplish within the junior class and student body as a whole?
Yeah, I think without having a chaplain, it's kind of hard because it's kind of up in the air. But I think a way that, especially the junior class can be able to grow closer together is just having opportunities for us to share our testimonies, because I know that a couple people have shared it in class chaplains, but I'm sure that there's others that are looking for a way to share or looking for ways to be able to just help with chapels and stuff. And there might be people who are kind of shy and they want to lead worship, but they're kind of afraid to, or they are looking for an avenue and they don't have that ability. So I think making those more open so people can find easier ways to either lead worship or lead a chapel or share their testimony, I think would be a good way for all of us to grow together.
That's awesome. So personally, I've worked with you before, and I know you're super, super organized, but can you kind of talk about how you go through your organization process, how you stay on track of things, just being thorough?
To-do lists. It's my to-do lists. So I use my notes pages a lot, and I like to make lists and then check off what's done and prioritize what's the most important and also what's going to take the most amount of time. And then those are the things that I have to do first or spend the most effort on, because they're either really important and need to be done perfectly, or they just can be left towards the end of things that can be either delegated to other people and for them to help me do them, or I need to be on the forefront because they're the most important.
All right, so I do want to ask you, so specifically for next year, if you're elected as STUCO secretary, do you have any goals or what do you want to achieve as that position?
Well, I do think that like the seniors this year have set us up really well with organization. And so I would like to continue to build on that. By the way, y'all have made the spreadsheets and the shared Google Docs. I think that'd be a good opportunity to have more shared sheets with the administration and like all of the events that are happening, especially with sports and with after school things and with clubs, just to help things be more organized and have like less crossover between me trying to be at STUCO meeting and me trying to be at NHS meeting or at a chess meeting or at a volleyball or a tennis meeting or all the things that are happening, just so that it allows people to do their jobs and also be in other things and not be completely overrun because they're trying to do more than one thing than just STUCO.
All right, let's hear it from Ms. Pinwell. All right, and next to the stage, we have Ms. Scout Bullard. And Scout is running for STUCO Vice President. So the Vice President is kind of your huge servant leader. That's someone who's always working behind the scenes, comes early, stays late, does a lot of things to really help the president. So what positions or roles have you held in the future that have really grown you to be a servant leader?
I think the biggest and probably my favorite one is serving at church. We have a huge like children's section in nursery, and not a lot of people volunteer for that, but I have for the past 3 years loved volunteering in that. And it's not something that people have to do, and they're in need of a lot of workers, but I've really enjoyed volunteering for that and getting to work with the kids and doing that at church.
So I want to ask, how do you work with others? How do you go about dealing with difficult situations in case some sort of tension does arise?
I think when working in big groups, the best thing to do is to communicate and let everyone have a voice and say what they think about the situation, because if it's just one person or not, someone doesn't get to be heard, then that's when like tension can be caused. So just having a big like open group where everyone feels that they can talk and voice their opinion.
That's really good. So my final question for you is, what qualities have you been able to develop through your time in high school or just life in general that you think will really lend a huge hand to being STUCO Vice President?
I think I've been in a lot of clubs. I've been in STUCO for 3 years, and I think that's really helped prepare me. And just, I've been a leader of clubs and other stuff, but haven't really been out on the forefront, and I think that's helped prepare me to just be okay with like being behind the scenes and working really hard, even though I know it's not gonna be recognized. And that way I can just help whoever the president is to just work behind the scenes and get things done.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Bullard. All right, and last but not least, Mr. Eli Hill running for president. All right, so this is a big role. There's a lot going on. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about leadership positions you've held in the past, or how do you feel that you've been prepared for this position?
Yeah, so I've actually been in STUCO the last 3 years, and I think that's been a big part of it. And I've also been in Salt and Light since freshman year, and I think those are both, I've seen some really great leaders in front of me that have really been a good example of what to do. Also this year I still am the chaplain of Eastman Reachman, which has been a big thing, because that's really been the first time that I've been over a lot of stuff and not just a part of a big leadership group. Other than that, I've been in NJHS, NHS all the way through as long as I could. So I think all those things, again, just really teaching me, letting me look up to other great leaders and just see how exactly to lead others.
Absolutely. So also that comes with that leadership position, there's a lot of stress involved. I mean, I'm sure you're feeling it right now. This is not easy at all. But how do you deal with stress, and how can you go about working in stressful environments?
Yeah, I think the first thing for me is just prayer, and I think that's a big part a reason. Even, I mean, I've spoken up here a couple times recently for Each One Reach One, and even on the intercom, you know, you get really nervous. And I think a big thing for me is knowing that if I'm staying in God's word and I'm praying, you know, I know that I'll be all right. And you know, God places things in front of you for a reason, and I think this role was here, and I think God wanted me to take it. So I think that's a big reason why I can do stuff like this, and when I get up here, I don't get as nervous.
That's good, that's good. So what goals do you have for next year, or what do you want to achieve?
So as STUCO president, I realized that not only am I representing myself in the senior class, but I'll be representing the whole student body. I think a big thing for me is I take pride in the things I do, so I want everything to be done and achieved well. So I don't want next year just to be fun for the seniors. I want next year to be fun for the whole student body and everyone that I'm in charge of. So I think a big thing is just including everyone, making sure I'm not biased towards certain grades, just really making it a student council and not just a senior, you know, monarchy that's over everything.
Absolutely. All right, thank you, Mr. Hill. So before we close, I just kind of want to pray for our STUCO officers, but also I want to ask, if you're interested in running for STUCO chaplain, there's currently not an applicant yet, so it's a completely open position. Please apply. They need your help, and it's such a great position. I'm working on some things to make it even more of a leadership role, but someone that can really guide our our student body in a spiritual way. So let me just pray real fast, and we'll start wrapping up. Dear Lord, thank you for this day, and thank you for just this really neat opportunity in order to meet our servant leaders and people who really want to just step up and follow you, but more importantly, help the student body. And I pray that next year, no matter what happens with the results, that you will just be with the officers and that you will guide them, help them to honor you through all that they do, and also just achieve their goals and bring so much fun and joy and excitement and just life into the student body, God. I pray that you'll bring just a sense of school pride and spirit and allow just your spirit to wash over us so that we bond and have unity, God. And I thank you for this opportunity again, and in your name I pray, amen.
Get through it. Okay, before I dismiss you, just a reminder, if you're wanting to run for class office, and again, it's one of those things you say, well, I'm nervous, I don't like being up in front of people, I don't, yeah, I understand that, but you'll grow tremendously in your own leadership ability and your ability to serve other people, but you just have to step out and do it, you know, and you'll be okay. It was nervous for these people speaking today, and they did a great job. And when I hear students speak, I listen to how many times they said like, or how many times they said in between it. And all four of them did an amazing job of not doing that. There's very few adults who can speak and not do those two things, much less juniors in high school. So thank you for doing that, setting a good example of speaking, okay? So we are gonna get out a little bit early. So you'll have about 6 or 7 minutes, and then you need to be in class for third hour, okay? So the bells will ring a little after 10:30. You are dismissed. Thank you.